and welcome to Corner Comics, your semi-weekly, mostly weekly comic book reading club. I'm your host, Burkhoff. I'm joined by my buddy, Russ. How you doing this weekend?
Better every day and trying to get better than that.
Perfect. So we are down a man. Emmanuel had to back out last minute. So we did some... Um, we talked a little bit before going on stream here to try and figure out what we were going to do. And we decided that we did want to save his two issues that he submitted. If you follow me on Twitter, you get the reading list every week. And we're going to do R4 and then probably talk a little bit about just some side stuff. Some stuff that Russ threw in the show notes. So this week we've got 4 issues. The 2 that I'm bringing to the table are Doctor Strange: The End. This is a one-shot, follows a series of The End comics that Marvel has been doing. Captain America, Captain Marvel, they've been doing all those. And my second issue is Solar Man of the Atom. This is issue number 1 from the 2014 run. So this is after Dynamite had bought the rights to Solar Man of the Atom. And Russ, what are your 2 issues this week?
My 2 issues are Analog, number 1, from Image Comics. And the second is Thor version 6, number 2, came out this week, obviously from Marvel. I mean, where else? Enough said.
All right. So do some housekeeping, I guess, or, run through the where you can find us and all that kind of stuff. So, Russ, where can they find you on the web?
You could find me on Twitter at Walrus. That's at WALLRUSS. You can also find me at blacksuperherofan.com as well as comiccreatorsofcolor.com. Tune in.
Perfect. Kind of went out of order. This is why I let Keith do the intro for Beer on Vert, because I'm just... I have it all written down, and then I just go off script, and I lose it.
I understand.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with my first issue, Doctor Strange: The End. This is one that got thrown into my pull box by my local comic shop. He usually watches out for me. He finds stuff that maybe I wouldn't necessarily pick up, or stuff that he knows that I would probably like. I wasn't going to pick this up because it was a one-shot, and then he threw it in my pull box, and I was like, all right, I'll buy it. And I bought it, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. I liked the artwork and the story. I liked the fact that it was about, Doctor Strange, a magical guy living in a technological world. And it kind of mirrors, I guess, your first pick, too, in that it's more of a near future. This is sort of where we can see AIs being relatively shortly, So what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I have a few. First of all, when I think of, so there's a few of these, The End, that are coming out. I guess they're all, telling these nice stories. What I realized from reading a lot of Marvel comics is that the future is bleak.
Very, yeah.
And pretty much across the universe, as opposed to DC Comics, who has the Legion of Superheroes in the 31st century, where humans are at, their brightest interplanetary star. But it looks like everything in Marvel turns to crap. No matter what, everything's going to end badly. Few people will escape. What is definitely going to be really foul and happen to them. And this, to me, is no different. I like the idea of it, like what ultimately happens to Doctor Strange. The idea of that appeals to me. The execution, it wasn't what I would have liked. It looked like Doctor Strange meets The Dark Knight Returns.
Okay.
For me, even somewhat in the art. Like, for example, for me, the art wasn't like the things you need to pay attention to. They were detailed there, but anything else was not a lot of detail. Like if you need to watch the front hand, that hand you can see all the fingers and everything else, but the back hand looks like a block
Right.
somewhere back. So I noticed that, and I wasn't a fan of that, but I felt a little cheated for that end. And I wanted to know what happened. Like only talked about Doctor Strange surrounding community, but Doctor Strange is supposedly sorcerer supreme of, I don't know. We haven't talked about this. Is he sorcerer supreme of Earth, solar system, the universe? What's his power level? Is there other sorcerer supremes on, Jupiter or the Shi'ar Empire or whatever? I don't know. But I just thought there would be more resolutions to other players. Are the X-Men all dead? Or do the Avengers still exist? Is the Hulk still alive? What about his Defenders buddies, right? Is Silver Surfer still roaming the universe?
Yeah.
No idea. We only really talking about Doctor Strange and 5 people pretty much in his inner circle.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised that magic was part of it, because up until recently in the comics, I know they know each other, but I never really sensed a relationship between the two.
Yeah, this issue alludes to a much deeper connection between Scarlet Witch, Ileana, and Steven, I think.
Hmm. But I don't have any comic history to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like an alternate future for sure.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it was warranted if you're sort of on the periphery and
Yeah.
you're not really involved in like sort of the magic characters of Marvel. It's like, oh yeah, okay, let's throw a reference to Scarlet Witch, and I thought the connection between Ileana and Doctor Strange was interesting though.
Agreed.
Um,
Actually, there's a comic out right now, some X-Men book, where he's reaching out to her and talks about a history. I don't remember which one that was. I read it recently, like this week or last week.
I'm not sure.
It may be, let me see,
I think.
Doctor Strange, not Sorcerer Supreme, but it might be the other one.
Oh yes, okay. So the second issue of Surgeon Supreme came out this
Surgeon
week,
Supreme,
and I haven't
yeah.
read that yet. So
So
it could be in
and
that
I'll
one.
say no more about that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a nice one-of story. Uh, I felt a little cheated on the art, but it was sort of pleasant and gave everybody peace, and it mentioned all the right people, and you see a ultimate end. Uh, it's like one of these books that's at the end. If this was an animated series, this would be like the epilogue series, sort of how everything turned out. So in that respect,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't know, like what happened to Magic.
Hmm.
Um, we know that Steven sort of put her in this weird magical stasis
Hmm.
with the hope of bringing her back.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the notes that I made, and then you you commented on, I said, "Is our legacy and existence only meaningful if it's meaningful to someone else?" And you said, "Define meaningful." Um,
Yes.
I think the way that I would define it is consequential, at least in relation to this story, right? Because
When you say consequential, there's got to be an observer, and consequential to whom? And so meaningful sounds like it really means how many other people are affected, right? Because if it's meaningful to me, then none of that matters. But are you talking meaningful to the world? You talking meaningful to the Marvel universe? And I don't know where your standard is when you say what's meaningful. Is our legacy is only meaningful is if it's meaningful to someone else? Yes. Because if you're searching for meaning, either you create meaning for yourself,
right,
right? Or you want to see what everyone else thinks,
okay,
right? So for most parts, the average person, how do you know you're great? You compare yourself to someone else. There's got to be someone else in the mix. Meaningful means because I can have an amazing story that you never read. But it didn't affect you. Does that mean it's not meaningful? Right?
yeah,
Uh,
that's a good question.
so for me, when people mean meaningful, they're really talking about meaningful to the world. Like if my parents say to me, "I want you to make your life meaningful," they're saying, "I want you to affect the world."
Right.
All right. And don't be less than that. So yes, it is got to be meaningful to someone else. I think that's how society sees it.
Yeah.
That's another thing about the science and technology. I do believe if there is magic, that technology will be able to connect. I figure Tony Stark, because there's some futures where Tony Stark became the next Sorcerer Supreme,
Right.
right? So I'm thinking Tony Stark would have figured it out right now, right? The only person who wouldn't figure it out is Reed Richards, because he's just like, no, magic isn't real, it doesn't follow any real rules. I ain't doing that. So um, yes, can magic be replaced with technology? There's no replacement because you're not going to eradicate magic. The question is, can magic be a tool? You can't replace a wrench with a screwdriver, but you can have a life where you use both.
Yeah.
So that would be the future that I see in this universe, is that somebody can have some technology aptitude and some magic aptitude, because they're both available around you. And so I don't see that one has to be. And I really believe that if you can categorize all spells on a spreadsheet, then there is a way to make magic and technology work. Just because Doctor Strange didn't work it out, Doctor Strange is not a technology dude,
No.
right? He's basically using Siri in this to try to find a way to make it work. If you would have put instead Tony Stark on this problem, we would have had some change.
How do you feel about him effectively being insane this entire issue?
Yes.
Like he's
Well, if you how okay, if you that's the real question. Human beings are not designed to last more than 100 years, right? If you're 300 years old, do you really expect? I mean, there's no science. First of all, we haven't even figured out the true science of mind anyway, right?
yeah.
We really don't fix anything. So it's very reasonable to expect that someone who live over 100 years is insane. In fact, that's kind of what we think would happen, right? Every villain that's been around for 100 years, we think is insane,
Right.
right? That's not even a question, right? So, yes, the real question is, do we trust what happens when the only practitioner of magic is insane, right? What
Yeah.
happens if Iron Man goes insane, right? And then cracks the world open out of his insanity, right? What happens when any of these people go insane? These people are basically walking nuclear arsenals, right?
Yes.
Or even higher power than that when you think mysticism. And because I know that Tony Stark, if he went insane and wanted to destroy most of the universe, he could. I mean, that's. So yes, old people had to die. In DC, they die. In DC, they know what's up. Right? In DC Comics, the people who live basically they have legacy heroes, right?
Yeah.
You have Superboy, Superboy Junior, Superboy the Third, and and so they can keep it fresh, right? And the insane ones, they go off to live in the sun. We already know you're crazy. Just go away and stop trying to get into the mainstream, right? If Batman, look at Batman Dark Knight Returns, right? The oldest Batman ever. That Batman is insane. Tell me I'm wrong.
No. Yeah.
Right? So and that's why it's not in the Marvel universe, DC universe proper. So yes, and answer your question with all that proof, you're over 100 years old, you're insane, and super powerful people should not be allowed to have that power. Look at the Wolverine movie, the last one, where
Logan.
Professor Xavier had a brain hiccup and killed most of the X-Men in that future. Oops.
Yeah.
Don't blame me. I was sick. You know what I'm saying? No. Somebody need to kill him. I think I need to be old man killer. We need a super villain to destroy these old people with great powers. They should not be allowed. Make your peace, homie. Once you reach 100 years old man killer is coming for you. Or old man killer's son, because he's not going to get to be 100 years old either. Right? You basically need old man Punisher to come out and take all these people. You do.
This might offend some people, but I would call him the euthanizer.
I like it. I like it. That is catchy. That's great. That's good thinking there on your part. So yeah, that's my answer.
And I think it's a good segue into the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
So my next issue is Solar Man of the Atom #1. This is from 2014. This does ask the question, what happens when you have somebody who is basically a walking nuclear bomb lose control of their powers? and practically go insane. Um, so this starts off. This is, I guess, less of an origin tale and more of a cautionary tale. It does expect you to, even though it's issue one, it does expect you to know a little bit about the character,
Yes.
um, but does do a pretty good job of explaining how his powers work pretty early on.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so basically we have the hero Solar, stop a bank robbery and then lose control and cause mass havoc and panic, and then disappears. And then he reaches out to his daughter, and his daughter goes to see him and um, finds out what state he's in. The issue ends, I think, with a massive explosion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts? And you have history with this character, right? You've already
I
read this
do.
series.
This is a character that I have tried very hard to love. Like I'm coming in, I'm just going to love you. You're going to be amazing. And it didn't always get me there, but I didn't give up. To me, this is Dr. Manhattan crossed with Firestorm
Okay.
as one being. The idea of it is great. The uh, what the character is likely capable of is great. Still limited by the human mind. Still limited by no one knows how this works beyond him. So if he hasn't figured it out yet, he can still destroy the universe.
Right.
Uh, if you have this level of Dr. Manhattan power, do you go after bank robbers? Is that where you should be? Shouldn't you be fixing the ozone layer? Shouldn't you be refreezing the polar ice caps? Right?
Yeah.
Is this kind of power level where you can consciously transmute matter, where you have an awareness that no human being has?
Right.
You can save the human race. You don't even have to have a costume. You don't even have to be seen. You could be just going out there fixing things, right? You could destroy nuclear power so no one can use it. You could get rid of nuclear waste. This is the power level this guy's operating at. So why is he stopping bank robbers in the beginning? That's my, you know what I'm saying? That's my issue. And he is aware of his power level, right? This is a guy that kind of is conscious of
He's
what he can do.
well. All right. So I don't know if this is ever if that specific question is ever answered in this, but
It's not.
my understanding, or the way that I viewed it was, yes, he has an understanding of what his power is, but he's still figuring it out. And I mean, he does start to ramble about how the math is all messed up. So, um, for everybody watching and listening that can't or maybe hasn't read the comic, basically when he's using his powers, he's seeing math equations because he's transmuting matter and things like that, right? Um, so I don't think that he fully understands. Like, yes, he probably could, go freeze the ice caps and reverse global warming, but how do you go about doing that? Maybe he doesn't fully grasp or doesn't want to go tackle something like that because something like blowing up in a bank could happen, but
I, I
on a
think
much
I
larger
think
scale.
I think more like when you look at street heroes. Let's look at Luke Cage, right?
Hmm.
Luke Cage has Avengers level power, but he stays in the hood. He really concentrates on small level things, right? In comparison to the world,
Yeah.
right? That's writing. So that's not, that's how they've written the character. That no matter how much you draw him into the Avengers, he is still going to come back to the hood and stay there because that is where his focus. That was a lot of my concern about a lot of black characters that were written in the 80s, 70s, and all of that moved into now, is that most of them tend to stay in the hood. That's a writer's issue. That's a problem. Even Black Lightning, who has graduated to the big time, keeps going back to the hood, right?
Right.
That is not every black person, but that is how they're written. So maybe this guy or the writer can't think beyond the hood. Like you got this great power, but wouldn't it be great to see how you dwarf the abilities of bank robbers? I don't know. But I wanted to like this. I like the idea of it, like a more human Dr. Manhattan, right? That's more explainable Dr. Manhattan,
Right.
who can't see the future and sort of has to make his own way and can't really get any help for it because no one can do or has an understanding level of what he is. Uh, This looks like it was written drawn in the 90s. I was thinking there was a Batman, an old Detective Comics Batman series that this sort of reminds me of that art,
Okay.
which is very serviceable and clear. Just doesn't look that modern, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. Uh, Again, this is something I wanted to like. It had a lot of the ingredients that I'm looking for in a comic. I don't feel like it pulled it off though. Uh,
Okay.
so But because I've already decided I'm going to like him, I'm going to read the next issue anyway. He's one of these characters that I just want to like. Like if I had to pick my own super team from all the different universes, Marvel and DC, this is one of the guys that would kind of want on my team,
Right.
regardless of the fact that there's no comic book that does him worthy that thinks I can show why he should be. This is just someone I wanted to like.
Did you ever read the Valiant version of him back in the early 90s?
Yeah, I actually like that version.
Okay.
I like that version more. So it was kind of, and I was like, oh, we're going to bring him back because, Valiant blinks in and out of existence often. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going to be here for a few years and for the foreseeable future, and then nope, I'm gone.
Right.
So I liked that version of it. But again, that was sort of very much a matter of the time that it was written and came out.
Yeah, I think I was more drawn in by like the 3D glasses and stuff that came along with that book
Yeah.
than the actual story. Um, I was more impressed by what they did with the art. So I don't know. I This is the reason I picked this particular book. I'm still on the Comixology Unlimited quest, so
Uh,
I'm still getting my $6 worth, and just sort of burning through some of the unlimited stuff that's available. And this is one of
mhm.
them. And I do remember the '90s book, so I was like, oh well, let's check out the Dynamite version. Let's see what they did with him. Um, I think I feel a little bit differently than you do because it doesn't really concern me that he's fighting bank robbers. It's just a setup for um, a way to show off his powers in a very quick way. Um, but I do get your concern. If you do have somebody that's this powerful, you should be, as a writer, tackling more serious issues or finding more creative ways to use his powers, I guess.
Yeah. It's like Silver Surfer being a member of the Defenders.
Right.
You know what I mean? Silver Surfer is all over the universe, right? But let's just keep him on Earth, hanging around with Doctor Strange and the Hulk. No, nobody else in that group can really leave Earth. He can leave Earth, do a whole thing, and come back. But I was like, well, I like him, and I was happy to see him.
Right.
But why is he there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is Earth really all that? But what are you gonna do? You got to keep the character relevant as best you can.
That's fair. Yeah. All right. Moving on. We'll go to your first issue of the week.
Yes, so I picked Analog #1. Came out in 2018. Image Comics. It is a very much, I'm going to use your words, hard-boiled crime noir with a near future flavor. If my memory serves, basically something happened and all this new technology is basically evil or bad, and we're trying to keep it analog. So this is a cell phones and those things do exist, but this world is trying to sort of bring back the old school. And so you had this grizzled veteran PI who was very good in his lane and sort of living in that world. So the technology somewhat regression is part of the backdrop, but not necessarily required to get to like and get to know this character who it's his heart. He's a grizzled dude. This part of him is something we all know. We've seen him in 1,000 movies and
Yeah.
TV shows and all of that.
Yeah.
But this guy has all those lovable qualities you like about the grizzled veteran, right? He could take a bullet, he could take a punch, right? He can get beat down and get back up. He could cuss you out. He don't have no time for nonsense. I like those characters, and then I think this one does well. What do you think?
So I like Jerry Dugan. I think is the writer for this. He's writing Marauders right now, which is
Mhm.
probably one of the better X books out there.
Yeah.
So I was kind of into it just from that. I was like, okay, it's somebody I like. I'm gonna like this no matter what. Um, he does. So the main character here does sort of feel like a guy from the 1930s thrown into this near future existence. Um, the artwork, I didn't really care for the artwork. I don't know what it is about it that I didn't really like. It's kind of blocky, I guess, but it works because I can hear the grizzled voice of the main character. Um, and so to that end, it works for this particular book, and it doesn't take me out of it. Um, the far future setting, though, is interesting because this was written in 2018, and possibly before that. Like, I don't know how long it took them to actually get this published by Image, but some of the concepts that it puts forth are things that I've just now started to think about. So it's interesting to see that happen in the past, I guess, or somebody contemplating these things in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Specifically, even kind of what we're doing right now, like we're broadcasting to the internet talking about comics. Why? Because this is the world we live in, right? um, and it touches on those things. I think that I'm more interested in sort of the lore of this near future than I am what it is the character's doing. um, and it seems like the setups and whatnot are just for him to sort of go on some type of tangent in this world about and have a social commentary. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
He falls into what the bigger picture is, not from any intent of his own. I
right,
think he's going to find himself front and center for something he probably doesn't even care that much about. And he's not going to use any of the technology tools at other people's disposal. He's just going to do it with a gun and his gut. And this is the guy to do it. So I like that both things are happening. For me, that's sort of double duty in the book. Like I can like this character and I can like this sci-fi ish story both and be entertained by both simultaneously. For me, that both of those things are happening works for me because had it not been this guy, had it been a regular sort of white bread kind of guy, then I think it would not have done the story service. It wouldn't be as exciting.
yeah, yeah,
If this was a desk guy, you're not. But the grizzled veteran, especially when he meet his dad, can you imagine if Punisher and Punisher's dad were having a conversation? And Punisher's dad was calling Punisher a little bitch,
yeah,
something like that. That's great.
yeah. I was gonna get into that too. It's sort of interesting. That was the one aspect of like sort of the cliche crime noir detective is
Hmm.
this guy isn't portrayed as an alcoholic, but they show his dad as being one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, and there was an interesting conversation between him and his dad too, because he's like, "Well, what did you do?" He's like, "Oh, I poured it out because it was poisoned." And he's like, "Well, why'd you pour it out?" You know, and he's like, "No, I drank it instead of pouring it out because I knew it was poison or something like that." It
yeah.
was
And for anyone interested, that dialogue continues in the next book, and it's fun to read.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think the total it's what 6 or 8 issues.
I think so.
So
Something
I
like
could
that.
see myself finishing this just
Yeah,
to get through the story. I'm
yeah.
there.
So I'm seeing 9 issues.
Okay.
But if this were a graphic novel, I would say this is probably going to be a good read.
Yeah, and I think I actually read this on Comixology because I think the first 2 or 3 issues are part of Unlimited as well. So
Hmm.
it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So, any more? We good on this one?
Yeah, I think we're good on that one. I don't really have any additional thoughts.
Okay. So then I'll move on to my next book, which is Thor, Volume 6, Number 2, came out, I think, this week. In this is what happens when Thor, who is already a god and greatly powerful, now also becomes a herald of Galactus. Like I can't even fathom like what's the power level over 19,000? What is the power level now of Thor
I
if he's already a god and he's got the Odin force and now he's got the power cosmic,
well,
right?
that's the thing. So after War of the Realms, hasn't he ascended to his father's position?
Yes, he is now. Oh, he is now the new. Odin is still alive, by the way, but now he is the ruler. Yeah, Odin has stepped down, and Thor is now the ruler of all of Asgard and the Nine Realms. And it ain't fun for him. It's kind of boring. He's got that quest lust. And you see more of that in the first issue. But seeing him go head up with Galactus, like, no, you ain't eating this world, that was great to me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And the amount of effect he could have on Galactus, right? You see the Silver Surfer go back on Galactus, Galactus just smites him, right?
right, right.
Thor throws the hammer and just we got his fingers falling off of Galactus. I was like, wow, because now I can't really quantify Thor's power,
No,
right?
yeah,
But you got regular Thor that we know. Then we give him the Odin Force, and then we give him the Power Cosmic. I don't know what number that is. Is that 62 million? What's the number here, right? And then what special powers? Because if you look at all the old Heralds of Galactus, they were Earth, Air, Fire, and Water. So now it's
yeah,
Earth, Air, Fire, Water, and Storm. I don't know what that is, right?
yeah.
But this is interesting in that fact. I'm not a fan of the art, but it works.
Okay.
I'm not going to say this is the art I need to see, but the stuff that happens, this is a story I want to be told. I want to know how this works out. When you see him blow a hole in Galactus' hand with his hammer,
Yes.
I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
right? What the hell? What the heck is and defy Galactus, right, on his own? Like Galactus, you ain't nothing. I'm a god. Like you know what I'm saying? What the heck? And then might be able to pull off like he could win, right? I'm like, oh my goodness.
Right.
So for me, this tickles my wide-eyed wonder of what I want to see in a Thor comic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like he's playing right into the character of what I expect of Thor. What are your thoughts?
So I'm familiar with the writer Donny Cates. He's the one that came up with the concept of making Ghost Rider Herald of Galactus.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I put in the notes. I was like, and you get to be a Herald of Galactus, and you get to be a Herald of Galactus. It's like, and everybody gets the power cosmic in Donny Cates' universe.
Mm-hmm.
So that I thought was kind of funny, but I agree with you. Like watching the hammer fly through Galactus's hand like butter, like that was like, holy shit. Like Galactus is fucked up right now. Like giving him the power cosmic was not a good idea.
Right?
Um,
So yeah, this is this is when I believe Marvel is good when it's giving me this wonder, like, oh my goodness, I've never like this. I like how it made me feel.
yeah, yeah. I did not expect to like this, and Thor has never been one of the characters that I've never picked him up in a book, and I've always enjoyed his character in casts of characters. I've never sought out like a Thor book, right? Because
Mhm.
he's never been that character to me. But this is very surprising. Like I did not expect it to be as fascinating as it was, and to see this kind of stuff. The artwork, I actually like the artwork. I don't like the faces in some of the panels though.
Okay, I can go with that.
So Marvel's been doing this recently where they have like this painterly quality to a lot of their art. And I kind of like that. I like how it looks more like a digital painting than it does a traditional comic page. Um, and I think that's just sort of the trend that we're on right now. This is going to be like the style that defines um, the second decade of the new millennium.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think it might fit for the whole Thor God sword and sorcery kind of playing thing.
Yeah. Um, I don't know where you go with this though. I don't think this is a long-term series. At the end, I was like, oh, the hammer's coming back, and those are three fingers. Who the hell is that? Oh, it's Beta Ray Bill. So now he's going to
Yes.
throw down with Beta Ray. And
but he's more powerful, right? In theory.
yeah, so
So who knows?
yeah, I
See, because you don't know where it's going to go means you have to read the next issue. And I mean that means good writing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I really liked, like I said, I really liked Donny Cates' run on Guardians of the Galaxy, and um, Cosmic Ghost Rider was kind of a cool concept.
Great.
So yeah, I'm just waiting for him to write Captain America next because it just means that Captain America is going to be a Herald of Galactus.
I'm the Herald of Fists. And of course, I we had a nice Thori guest
Yes,
appearance.
yeah,
And Thori, it's like all you need is a little bit of Thori, and it just makes everything better, right? Thori the Murder Dog is just great, man. Thori help,
yeah,
and he uses that he uses his name, instead of, so it's like he doesn't. It's like he's not that smart, but you also know that Thori understands big concepts, right?
yeah, yeah,
So just everything was good, and then this is a good ice cream sundae, and then the Thori was the cherry on top. I didn't need it, right? It's only a bite, right? But it was good,
yeah,
So for me, this is one of the reasons why I read comics. I want you to make me go like, oh shit, I got to see where this goes,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's and so and I don't normally read Thor either. I think Thor normally is a not that very smart dude with a lot of power who thinks he's wiser than he is,
right.
and I'm a god, so you should just bow down. I respect my words.
Yeah, when he's not being a drunken buffoon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this was, and the first issue, he kind of was the Thor that I knew, and then things changed.
Okay.
So I'm going to recommend issue 1 and 2 since those are the only issues out. I think this is the beginning, even if it's only 6 issues, and I don't know. I think this is going to be a good series to watch.
Now, did you take a look at the Strange Academy preview at the end?
I did, and it makes sense. I don't know if you remember. I'm always pushing for we need young superhero groups.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this off camera last week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's two events I think that Marvel's doing, right? Or one, they're doing one major event with all of the teen characters, and then the Strange Academy is one of the new books that's coming out. I like it
Yeah,
because it's a totally new team. It's a new concept. Like this has never really been done before.
and yet I could say this has exactly been done before as an X-Men book,
Well, yeah,
as New Mutants. It's new. I could say New Mutants magic.
or Generation X.
Mm-hmm.
But
So, but it is magic. It is a different space. It is because I could look at all these people and their powers and say, what if this was not magic? What if this was just another New Mutants book? Is it that different? And I don't know because we only saw a preview, right?
right, yeah,
You
um,
have different teachers, right? But all the powers that happen could possibly shown up in mutants.
yeah. Well, I could have done without um, Magic and Scarlet Witch. They could have left them out. I
Hmm.
know that they're sort of, we alluded to it with Doctor Strange at the end. They're sort of bringing these characters together in a way that has never really been portrayed in the comics before, and they're sort of a part of this group that I guess they're making out of the Magic characters. Um,
But one good thing is like a new anime, a new character could come out of this that you really like. You know what I
yeah,
mean? A
yeah,
new underdog character could be brought. This is a good breeding ground, for a good new Marvel character to come into the fold and be somebody you follow to the end. Like this is a place you can get the next Miss Marvel or the next young Spider-Man, but magic,
right.
right? So I think this is a good. Uh, I don't know if I'm going to love the series, but I feel like you can get 2 or 3 good characters out of this that enhance the Marvel universe as a whole.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I've got it on my pull list, so I'm excited to at least pick up the first couple of issues and see where it goes. If it doesn't hold my interest, I'll drop it pretty quick. But you know, having the number one issue sitting in my box is not a bad thing, I guess.
You know, if you're an old school collector, having a number one issue has an effect on you.
It does.
Even though it may never be worth
Right.
anything, I got the first one,
Right.
right? And you're scared to open it because you don't want to, right?
Yeah.
And you want to, maybe I'll read it somewhere else and keep this one pristine. Because I have the number one issue and I'm thinking, oh, but I can get the first five. Maybe that'd be more valuable, right?
You know, it's funny. My wife thinks that I'm crazy because I buy a lot of Marvel books and they have the
Hmm.
digital code. And that's literally like I'll open the book, I'll get the digital code, I'll type it into my computer, I put the issue away, and then I read it on my computer.
Yep.
She's like, "Why don't you just read the book at least one time?" I'm like, "No, I can't. It's got to stay in, you know."
There you go.
So, all right. Well, I enjoyed the four that we picked this week.
Me too.
I know I threw a couple extra issues on there because of Emmanuel. So hopefully next week we'll be able to talk about his two issues
Yeah.
with him here. I didn't. I liked the suggestion of not doing his books without him here because the last couple times we've done it, I felt like we definitely needed his input.
Yeah.
So, all right, we did throw some stuff on the end of the show notes. You shared a link to the Comic Humble bundle, which is a, dare I say, a shit ton of Star Trek comics for
Yes.
$15. I tried
Yeah.
to go through, and I'll probably post the link to this in the YouTube description. So for anybody that's interested, you can check it out at least for the next 11 days.
Mhm.
I tried to quantify how many single issues this is, but like just at the dollar level, you have the 2011 Star Trek run from 2011 to 2016, 13 volumes, which I think is, I don't know, 60 issues or something
For a dollar.
For a dollar.
And legally a dollar, right? Because we're not cheating anybody. This is a legitimate thing. And if you're willing to spend more, and you know, there's the question is, are you the kind of person that has to have your comics physical, or do you want to have them digital? But for a few dollars, you could have more than you could read in a month,
Oh yeah,
easily,
yeah,
and really start collecting in a way that you collect faster than you can read. And wouldn't it, isn't that great to have more great comics in front of you than you have time to read? Because there's always something great for you to read. So if you're a Star Trek fan, and there's even a code with the last version of $15, and you get, I don't know how many more comics.
yeah.
There's even a code to add to the Star Trek Online free to play game to add something to that game as well.
Right.
So
Yeah. So
so
$15 gets you
everything.
300
I mean,
issues and
right?
yeah,
300 issues for $15, right? That you own legally forever,
yeah.
that you can read on any device.
I honestly don't know how many issues it is. I'm just
But it feels like 300.
It does. It feels
Even
like
if
a
it's
lot.
100, that's still a lot of issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I'm gonna do this or not. I'm conflicted. I might spend the money. The one thing that stops me is the format. So these are PDF, EPUB, and CBZ, which
Okay.
I don't mind the CBZ format, but I do love the guided view of the comics that you can read on Marvel's website and Comixology.
I agree. And there's something similar where you can go panel by panel for the DC Universe Online as well.
Right.
But you're going to pay more to play that game.
Right.
And you don't, and you know, you may not own them, or you may not be likely to own them. Whereas these you own forever. These are something you can pass in a digital format to your child. This is something you can share with a friend.
Right.
This is something that, say, I want all my friends, I'm starting a Star Trek club, and here are all these issues that now, because you're part of this club and you're contributing this, that you can read to get further into the lore. So imagine if I had a chapter of a Star Trek club, and now I have all these comics that I can share with all the members.
Right.
Right. So it really depends on how you know, is it how you read them right now, or what you could possibly do with them later? And who knows, there may be some digital, some software that'll come along and take your format and put it in the format that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I didn't stick with Marvel Unlimited
Hmm.
for as long as I did was because when I went back to read the old X-Men comics, the guided view was messed up. Like it was clearly somebody has to go in and figure out where it needs to zoom on the panel in order for it to make sense. And
For every single book, someone
yeah,
has to be paid to do that. Yes.
you know, so you do spend a little bit more on the guided view, but you get, you know, that added benefit of being able to read it like that. Um,
Hmm.
and so, in addition to you sharing this link, this was also you posed the question: what should comics cost? And I think it matters whether it's physical, digital, and how it is read digitally, right? Because a physical book, I can potentially sell that to somebody. So even if I do spend $4 on it, if it's worth $3 to somebody else, what my net cost is actually $1 on that issue.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's the third part you said about the guided viewing.
Yeah,
I think that is a service that you pay for. I don't see that as that's built into the actual comic digitally. So my thought is there's three ways to do this. There's print, so you can get a physical copy. There's straight digital, and like you said, these three formats. And then there's the guided view, which is another. But I think in order to have that view, you have to pay an online fee because someone's got to be paid for this,
right,
right?
right,
To go into every book and to set these things up. So if you want to one and done, print and digital is the first two ways to go.
right.
If you are a physical comics collector, if you need that tactile sensation, what should an average comic book cost? I say no more than $5. And I would prefer to go down to three, but I understand printing costs. I'm
Yeah,
saying once you go over $5, now you're tripping.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And even then, and I know that the value of what you're getting in today's world is more, but the cost out of our pocket, I don't know that we're getting more than $5 worth of joy from it. So at some places, I feel $5 might be too much, but I'm willing to go to that number. For digital, however, the challenge with digital is that I can buy it digitally and resell it to 1,000 people. So, or give it away to 1,000 people.
right.
And they don't have any way to monitor that because there's no real DRM in this conversation, right? So I understand why they might want to keep the price high, but the value to me, because now I have to have a device in order to receive these that I have to supply,
Right.
right? And I don't have, I believe it should be less, right? Cut that down. And you don't have to print them, you don't have to distribute them,
Right.
right? You don't have to. And once you created it, your cost, if you're the creator, once it's created digitally, if you did it one time and you can sell it an infinite amount of times.
Yeah.
So there's no cost to you after that. So I'm thinking $3, right? And even though the value of the book itself to the zeitgeist or whatever might seem more, $3, I'll pay that for a good digital book. I'll go do that going in. But if you don't make it 5, because now I might as well have the print copy, right? And and then if you want the third option, if you want to read it panel by panel, and you want a company to do that, and that's the next problem is that Marvel can do that for their books, DC can do that for their books, but for the other books, there's nobody to really do that.
Well,
So go ahead.
yeah, Comixology does. So every book on Comixology is guided view.
So, but if you buy the book, like to own it, do you still get the guided view if you don't pay the monthly fee?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a reason to get it on Comixology. And it's good that they'll be in business because what, Amazon owns them now?
Yeah.
So we know they're not going out of business anytime soon.
Right.
But then there's no competitor, right? Like what's the competitor if you want an image book in that format? Where else can you go?
I don't know that you can. I think Marvel licenses they must license the software because it acts exactly the same whether you read it on Marvel's website or Comixology's website.
Or maybe it's just in the code. Like maybe they just, when they give you the digital, they have some little cross tag or whatever when the next panel is or something like that. Like maybe there's a format that they give it to Comixology.
I don't know because so when I redeem my codes, I can read them on either. So it actually links to my Comixology account. So my
Oh, I
Comixology
didn't.
account has all of the Marvel books that I buy physical, even though I redeem them on Marvel's website. So I
Okay.
think Marvel licenses the rights to use the software. Um, but yeah, is there any alternative? I can't think of off the top of my head. There is an indie company that has like a mobile phone format for indie comics.
Hmm.
So there are people that are doing that are coming up with sort of an alternative to the guided view. But what you get is not a comic that's formatted like a regular comic and then um, changed to do the panel by panel.
Hmm.
It's developed specifically for like a mobile phone format so that you can read it panel by panel as the panel fits the mobile phone.
And then there's the fourth thing of comics that are written in the panel by panel to begin with
Yeah,
that never come to physical, right? Like who is that guy that wrote Daredevil? I can't remember him name. Thrill Bit.
yeah. Mark, that's not Mark Miller,
Mark
is it?
Waid.
Mark Wade.
Yeah, Mark Waid. I am a fan of Mark Waid. And if you go to Thrill Bit, there are his comics that are designed to be read panel by panel. Like you click it, you get the screen, you get that whole panel,
Right,
and then you click another button and you get the next panel, and you can just click through, and everything comes into view. Even words will pop in on one panel and then hit it again, and that word will disappear, and the words will pop in on the other side of the same panel. These comics were designed to be read online or on your whatever devices, and you can't get them any other way that I know of. There is
right.
no print.
Yeah,
And these are often, Mark Waid is kind of great to me. So these are often some very good stories.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
he's doing the new Doctor Strange run, so
mhm.
uh,
Now here's the question is, should comic book companies that write comics start making comics so they can be read that way?
I think Marvel tried it. And I know DC had a run of books that they were doing that way.
Mhm.
They were like digital first and then published to
Yeah.
physical comics. I don't know how well they did. I know the a few of the Batman Beyond comics that I have were actually the digital first and then printed. So
And then some don't work in both. Like some work in one medium and some doesn't work because we're really talking about we got to get out of just not Marvel and DC, right? We need to talk about all comics, wherever however they come.
Image, IDW, Boom,
Are
Dynamite.
are online only comics that only
Yeah,
were in that format. Like if you were to write your own comic and release it panel by panel on your website, right? That was made that way, it may never see print. It may
right.
not work well in print, but there's a lot of those out there that we don't actually talk about here in this space.
It's true. Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. We actually filled an hour.
I had no doubt.
I didn't doubt it either. Um, yeah. Any final thoughts? Dollar Comics.
Dollar Comics. I don't know how much they lose on Dollar Comics,
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
right? I don't know if everybody gets enough money or is Dollar Comics just a way to get you in the store, get you into a conversation. I don't know the economics of it. I know as a consumer, Dollar Comics don't tend to be very great, but tend to be worth a dollar.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily collector's items, right? Unless you're just a free comic book day collector or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And now, if there's a bargain bin or if there's a dollar rack of books that were originally priced higher, now I can get into that because I'm all into that. Okay, see, can I find a run? Can I get 3, 4 issues in a row? Yes.
Yeah.
You know. And by the way, one other, what do you call it? Graphic novels. I think they're generally priced correctly.
For the most part, yeah. I'm trying to think. Image does. I think they're $8 or $7, and
Mm-hmm.
usually they have 5 or 6 issues as opposed to the 4 issues that
Yeah,
aren't a
that's
lot of it.
cheaper than $3. That's certainly cheaper than $3 a book, which was my digital number.
Yeah.
So you give me the whole story in one book. I'm not really generally mad at the price. right? And it's something I can share as a whole story to someone.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and on that note, we're heading out. I usually leave a little room at the end just for some random conversation.
You know, now, if you're trying to keep it within an hour, maybe we do a one book apiece
We might
and
do
three of
that.
us.
I was thinking
Uh,
about
uh,
that.
you know,